Good evening, I'm Dan Wolf. Laura has the night off. Thanks for joining us. It happens every year, but today's Duluth Labor Day picnic at Bayfront had a different tone than all the others. Northern News Now's Kyrie Johnson takes a look at how speakers focused in on gun control.
Here at the Labor Day picnic today, elected officials and the community came together to celebrate. But with kids going back to school tomorrow following the recent shooting in Minneapolis, school safety was top of mind for many. Governor Walz is considering a special session on gun control following the mass shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis, in which 2 school children were killed. And while celebrating the hard work of laborers was the priority today, that grief was still present.
Stand, take your hat off. We're going to do a moment of silence.
And that grief quickly turned into anger for some.
Well, after the murder of 2 children is everything except guns. It's everything apparently in the world for these people, rather than trying to address the issue. There's a lot of gun owners here who also know you do not need those damn things. You certainly don't need them in church.
It's not clear the direction Walz wants the special session to take or what policies he wants the legislator to consider. But both Angie Craig and Amy Klobuchar, who were in attendance today, assure me they would support an assault weapons ban should that be on the table, while still respecting Second Amendment rights.
Some really smart things we could do to protect these little kids. When they were laying under those church pews, they didn't have anyone to protect them except maybe their fellow students and their teachers.
You can be a law-abiding gun owner and support common sense gun safety reforms in our country. And so I do support a ban on assault weapons.
In Minnesota, Governor Walz signed universal background checks and a red flag law in place in 2023. But elected officials are now being pushed to consider harder laws as kids go back to school.
But the biggest thing we can do isn't our kids demanded of it. Let's stand up for the democracy. Let's stand up for we know what's right. Let's stand up for our neighbors. Let's stand up and don't let them take our kindness as weakness.
While Walz has not officially called for that special session yet, we do know that he's been making calls to fellow lawmakers to get the ball rolling. In Duluth, Kyrie Johnson, Northern News Now.
It's also not clear which direction or which policies specifically Governor Walz would want to address with lawmakers should that be called a special session. We'll be tracking that possibility for a special session in Minnesota closely. You can stay updated by downloading our Northern News Now app.